I remember that morning like it was stitched into my skin, the day I thought I'd finally made them proud. My cap felt too tight, my palms slick with sweat, but none of that mattered because this was supposed to be our day. The stadium was a blur of laughter and camera flashes. Every time a name was called, families screamed, waved flowers, held up banners. I searched the sea of faces for mine. Mom's lilac scarf, Dad's old leather hat. Nothing. Just strangers' cheers echoing against the empty bleachers where they should have been. I kept telling myself maybe they were running late, maybe traffic. But as my name was called and the applause rose like a wave, I clapped for myself, alone. That's the first time I felt it. That quiet, humiliating ache of being invisible to the people who raised me. When I finally walked off the stage, my phone buzzed. One message. Just 6 words that punched the air out of me. We're busy. Don't make a scene. Her voice trembles. I stared at that text for what felt like hours. Not even congratulations, not even an emoji. Just a warning, don't embarrass them. I laughed quietly at first, that kind of laugh that tastes like salt and burns your throat. I took pictures with classmates, smiled so hard my face hurt, and pretended I didn't notice every parent hugging their child except mine. My roommate's mom hugged me before we left. She said, "I'm proud of you, sweetheart." And that's when it hit me. I couldn't even remember the last time my own mother said those words to me. But it didn't stop there. She exhales slowly. 3 days later, just when I thought the silence between us had swallowed everything, my parents showed up at my apartment door. I remember the smell of my dad's cologne before I even opened it, that sharp, familiar scent that used to make me feel safe. Mom smiled like nothing had happened. "We thought we'd surprise you," she said. I wanted to scream, to ask where were you. But I didn't. Instead, I invited them in. They brought no flowers, no gifts, not even a card. Just tension. My dad sat on the couch and got straight to it. No congratulations, no small talk. Just, "We need $2,500. At first, I thought he was joking. I laughed. I said, "Dad, I just graduated. I don't even have a job yet." But his face didn't move. He leaned forward and said, "You've been getting those stipends from your internship, haven't you? We know you have savings." My stomach dropped. How did they even know that? My mom crossed her arms and added softly, almost like a threat disguised as love, "After everything we did for you, Maya, this is how you repay us?" There it was. The guilt I'd been trained to feel since childhood. I asked what they needed the money for, and my father's eyes flicked away. "Don't worry about it," he said. "It's family business." I said no. My voice barely made it past my throat, but it was enough. And in that second, the air in the room changed. Mom's smile disappeared. Dad's jaw clenched. The silence felt like standing under a storm that hadn't started yet. He stood up slowly, towering over me, and said, "You'll regret this attitude." Her voice cracks. That line, it wasn't a threat. It was a promise. They left without another word. I locked the door and sat there for hours, replaying the conversation, wondering how love could turn so cold so quickly. For days, I couldn't eat, couldn't focus. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, half hoping it was an apology, half fearing what might come next. And then one night, I heard sirens outside my dorm window. At first, I thought it was just passing traffic, but they stopped. Right outside my building, the knock on my door was firm, official. When I opened it, 2 officers stood there. "Are you Maya Collins?" one asked. My voice shook as I said yes. They told me my parents had filed a report for theft. I felt my knees give way. "There must be a mistake," I whispered. But there wasn't. My father had claimed I'd taken money that belonged to them, the same money they'd asked me for just days before. I couldn't breathe. I remember trying to explain, my words tripping over tears, and the officer just sighing like he'd seen this 100 times. "You'll need to come down to the station tomorrow," he said. And just like that, they left. Their lights faded, but the damage was done. I sat there on the floor that night, shaking, staring at my phone, reading that last message from my father again. "You'll regret this attitude." And suddenly it all made sense. This wasn't about money. It was about control. They had ghosted my graduation, not because they didn't care, but because they wanted to remind me who held the power. My success didn't belong to me in their eyes. It belonged to them. And saying no had made me dangerous. I didn't sleep at all. I kept thinking of the officer's face, the quiet pity in his eyes. The next morning, I stared at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl looking back. Tired, hollow, terrified. I thought being ghosted was the worst pain a daughter could feel. But I was wrong. What came next would show me exactly how far my parents were willing to go to break me. I thought the police visit was the end, but it was only the first move in their plan to ruin my life. When I was little, I thought love looked like applause. Every spelling bee ribbon, every perfect report card. It wasn't really about learning or pride. It was about the look in my parents' eyes when the neighbors watched them beam. "That's our daughter," they'd say, with that proud, performative smile that never reached their eyes. I remember the way my mom would fix my hair tighter, her fingers pinching my scalp, whispering, "Don't embarrass me, Maya." And I never did. I was the girl who smiled, obeyed, achieved, because being perfect was the only way to be safe. By the time I was 10, I understood that in our house, emotions were currency. My tears were debts. My success was payment. When my report card came back with straight A's, my mom didn't hug me. She called 3 aunties just to say, "Maya got top of the class again. You should tell your kids to study with her." Every achievement turned into ammunition in their quiet war of superiority. And I played along because that's what good daughters do. I didn't know it then, but every medal I won was just another brick in the image they were building. An image where they looked perfect, even if I was breaking inside. As I grew older, the expectations hardened. My father used to stand in the doorway of my room, watching me study past midnight, and say, "You know we're counting on you, right? Not we believe in you, not we love you, but we're counting on you." Like my future was a debt to pay. And I believed it. I thought if I just kept being good, kept making them proud, maybe they'd see me as more than a tool. But what happens when the love you're chasing is conditional? When it disappears the moment you say no? When I got my first scholarship letter, I ran into the kitchen screaming. I was shaking, holding that envelope like it was proof that I existed. My mother took it from my hands, read it silently, and instead of joy, she sighed. "It's only partial, right? We'll still have to cover something?" My father nodded, already calculating numbers, already talking about his friends' sons who got full rides. That night, while I celebrated alone in my room, they told the neighbors the next day that they had sacrificed everything for me to get in. And the thing is, I believed them. I believed I owed them my life. When I left for college, my mom hugged me tight at the airport. She whispered, "Make us proud, okay?" But there was something else in her tone, a warning. And for years, I kept sending home parts of my paycheck from campus jobs, pretending it was rent, even though my dorm was fully paid. I'd skip meals, patch the soles of my shoes, and tell myself, they're just under stress. They've done so much for me. I thought that was love, but love doesn't make you hide your tears in bathroom stalls. Love doesn't turn your success into their reputation. It took me years to realize that my parents weren't proud of me. They were proud of how I made them look. There was this night I'll never forget. I had been working 3 jobs, tutoring, campus cafe, and a small internship. Finals were crushing me, and I was surviving on vending machine coffee and 4 hours of sleep. I called home, voice shaking, and said, "Can you send just a little help? I'm behind on rent." My mom paused for a long time, then said, "You're independent now, aren't you? You chose this life. Handle it." The line went dead before I could answer. I remember sitting there in the dark, phone still warm in my hand, whispering to myself, "They're just tired. They love me, they must." But deep down, I felt something shift. A crack in the story I'd told myself for years. Then, months later, while packing for winter break, I found something I wasn't supposed to find. It was late. I was looking for a coat in an old closet back home. In the pocket of one of Mom's coats, I felt paper. Folded. Thick. When I pulled it out, my breath caught. It was an unopened envelope from my university's donor fund, addressed to me. The postmark was from 6 months earlier. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a check. A scholarship check. Made out to me, my knees gave out. I sat there on the cold floor, staring at the number. It wasn't small. It was enough to cover nearly a semester's tuition. And it had never reached me. They'd taken it. They had intercepted it, hidden it, and said nothing while I worked myself to exhaustion. My mother must have opened my mail, realized what it was, and decided it belonged to them. I confronted her the next morning, shaking. I held up the envelope and said, "What is this?" She didn't even flinch. She looked at me like I was being ungrateful. You wouldn't even have that opportunity if it weren't for us. We've spent years investing in you. You think that money appeared out of nowhere? I couldn't speak. My throat burned. My father stepped in, calm but cold. Don't talk to your mother like that. You're lucky we managed your finances. You're not ready for that responsibility. They said it so casually. We managed your finances. Like it was normal. Like stealing from your child was parenting. And when I told them I needed that money to pay my bills, my mom said, "You'll survive." You always do. She said it like she was proud. That night, I cried harder than I had in years. But beneath the heartbreak, there was something new, anger. The kind that feels like lightning under your skin. For the first time, I saw the truth. I wasn't their daughter, I was their investment. Every A, every scholarship, every hour I worked, it was never mine. It was theirs to cash in when they wanted. Tell me, what would you do if you discovered your parents had stolen from you like that? Would you still forgive them? Or would you finally walk away? I wish I could say I walked away then, but I didn't. Because guilt is powerful. My entire childhood trained me to obey, to protect their image no matter what. So I stayed quiet. I told myself maybe they just needed the money more than I did. Maybe they were desperate. Maybe this was still love, the twisted, conditional kind I'd always known. But something had changed inside me. I started keeping receipts. I began to notice things I'd ignored before. The way Mom always asked for my login details for safekeeping. The way Dad used my achievements in his business dinners, saying, "Our daughter's degree proves how disciplined our family is." I started realizing they weren't just taking my money, they were taking my identity. I used to think obedience was love. That doing everything they asked meant I was being a good daughter. But I see now, obedience was the price of belonging in that house. The moment I questioned them, I became the enemy. That was the first seed of doubt, the one that grew roots I couldn't ignore. Because once you start seeing the cracks, you can't unsee them. And one day, while helping Mom organize some files for tax season, I found something else. A receipt. Old, faded, but unmistakable, with my name printed on it. And the number beside it made my blood run cold. And then I discovered the first shocking receipt that proved it all. I still remember the first time I opened my old bank app after months of avoiding it. I was sitting in my dorm room, the yellow light flickering from the desk lamp, my stomach knotted so tight it hurt to breathe. I told myself I was just checking how much I had left for rent. But deep down, I knew I was looking for something else, something that would confirm the feeling that had been clawing at me since graduation day. Something wasn't right. At first, it was just small things. A missing 50 here, a withdrawal there. But then I noticed larger chunks. Entire refund deposits from the university that had never made it to my account. Thousands of dollars. My heart started racing. I printed the statements, spreading them across my desk like puzzle pieces from a nightmare. Every line felt like a betrayal. Each missing transaction was a whisper saying, "They did this." Still, I tried to silence it. Maybe it's a bank error, I told myself. Maybe I just missed something. But denial has a limit, and mine was about to break. The next morning, I called the university's financial office. My voice was shaking so badly that I had to repeat my name twice. After a few minutes of keyboard clicks, the woman on the phone said, almost casually, "Oh, those refunds? They were released to your guardians of disbursement." I frowned. "Guardians?" "Yes," she said. "Your parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas?" My blood turned cold. Guardians of disbursement. It sounded official. It sounded irreversible. It sounded like I'd been signed away without even knowing it. I hung up, staring at my reflection in the black screen of my laptop. How long had they been doing this? How many times had they smiled at me, congratulated me, told me how proud they were, while using my name to fill their own accounts? I wanted to scream, but instead I laughed. That bitter, empty kind of laugh that comes from realizing the people who were supposed to protect you were the ones holding the knife. That night, I heard my father's voice through the speaker of my phone. It was an accident. I'd dialed home, but they hadn't noticed the line was still open. I froze as another man's voice joined his. "You must be proud, Thomas. That degree's paying off already, huh?" My father chuckled. That deep, confident sound I used to think meant safety. "Oh, you have no idea. Our daughter's degree is paying off already." Our daughter's degree. Not her degree. Theirs. Like I was just another asset in their portfolio. I sat there, my hands trembling, my phone pressed so tightly to my ear that I could hear the echo of their laughter bouncing in my skull. I couldn't sleep after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my parents' faces, not as the people who raised me, but as strangers wearing familiar masks. The next morning, I packed a small bag and took the bus home. I told myself I needed answers, but what I really needed was proof that I wasn't crazy, that there had to be some misunderstanding. When I arrived, my mother opened the door with that same smile she used whenever neighbors were around. Wide, performative, hiding everything. "Maya, you didn't say you were coming," she said, pulling me into a hug that felt like wrapping myself in cold plastic. I smelled her perfume, lilac and lies. "I wanted to surprise you," I murmured, stepping inside. The house looked smaller, dimmer. Or maybe it was just me seeing it for what it really was. We sat down for tea, pretending everything was normal. My father joined us a few minutes later, still in his business shirt, sleeves rolled up, confidence radiating like armor. I looked at both of them, waiting for one of them to crack first. "I checked my bank statements," I said softly. Silence. My father didn't blink. "And?" he asked. My heart was pounding. The refund deposits never went to my account. Still, nothing. Then calmly, as if discussing the weather, he said, "You should be thanking us for managing your money. Do you think you could handle that kind of responsibility at your age?" That tone, that calm, dismissive tone, broke something inside me. "It wasn't yours to manage," I said. My voice cracked, but I didn't look away. My mother sighed, setting down her cup with a soft clink. "Maya, we needed it more than you. We've done so much for you. You have no idea what sacrifices we've made." Her words hit like acid. "We needed it more than you." For a moment, I thought I might actually pass out. The room felt too small, the walls closing in. I stood up, staring at them both, trying to understand how people could twist love into something so cruel and convincing. My father leaned back, unbothered. "Don't be dramatic," he said. "It's all in the family." I wanted to shout that it wasn't, that love built on lies isn't family. But the words stuck in my throat. Later that night, after they went to bed, I wandered through the house like a ghost. Every picture on the wall looked different now. The smiling girl in the graduation gown, the trophies, the certificates, all props in their performance. Then I saw it, a stack of unopened envelopes on the dining room counter, all bearing the university's seal. I picked one up and my hand started shaking before I even tore it open. Inside were my financial aid statements, untouched. They'd hidden them, every document that could have exposed the truth, tucked neatly away under their roof. I sank to the floor, clutching those papers to my chest, tears running hot down my face. It wasn't just about the money. It was about control, about ownership. They hadn't raised me to be independent. They'd raised me to be indebted. When my father found me there, he didn't even look surprised. He stood over me, his shadow long and heavy. "Maya," he said quietly, "you should get some sleep. You're overthinking." I looked up at him, and for the first time in my life, I saw the man behind the mask. Calm, cold, calculating. "No," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm finally thinking clearly. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing their voices in my head. You should thank us. We needed it more." Over and over, until the words lost meaning and became just noise. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I made a decision. A quiet one. But it changed everything. I would stop asking for love from people who used affection as a leash. I would find out exactly how deep their lies went, and I would never be their investment again. But what happened next left me breathless. Because just when I thought I'd uncovered everything, I found something that made it all worse. A single folded document in my father's drawer. My name was printed at the bottom. My signature too, but I had never signed it. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about stolen money. It was about stolen identity. And if I didn't act fast, they wouldn't just ruin my finances. They'd erase me completely. When I unfolded that document, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. My name, was printed cleanly across the top of the page, next to numbers I didn't understand at first. Then I saw it, loan amount, $40,000, the lender's name. The signatures, the dates, all there. And at the bottom, a signature that looked eerily like mine, except for one small detail, the flourish on the M. It wasn't mine. It was my mother's. My chest tightened, my mouth went dry. They'd done it again, only this time it was criminal. I remember staring at that piece of paper for what felt like hours. My body wanted to scream, but my mind was too stunned to form words. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was identity theft. I tried calling my mother first, but she didn't answer. Then my father. His phone went straight to voicemail. The silence felt like confirmation. They knew what they'd done, and they weren't going to explain. Not this time. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept pacing my tiny apartment, whispering to myself like a woman possessed. Why? Why would they do this to me? Over and over. By morning, my voice was gone. My eyes were swollen. And I had made a decision. If they had used my name to destroy me, I would use the truth to expose them. I took the forged document to a small legal aid office near campus. The woman at the front desk looked at me with tired kindness as I tried to explain what happened. My words came out jumbled, trembling. When I handed over the paper, her eyes narrowed. "This is serious," she said. She led me to a back room where a legal advisor sat, an older man with silver hair and a steady voice. He took his time, reading every line, tracing each signature with his pen. Then he looked up and said softly, "Miss Thomas, this is fraud. Whoever did this could face felony charges." It felt like someone had pressed pause on the world. Fraud, felony, my parents. The man continued, explaining how they must have used my social security number to apply for the loan. He asked if I wanted to file a police report. I opened my mouth to say yes, but no sound came out. The idea of turning my own parents in felt unthinkable, even after everything. He handed me his card and said, "You don't have to decide right now, but do not ignore this. It will follow you for years if you don't act." When I left the office, the sky looked wrong, too bright for the kind of darkness I felt inside. I stood there on the sidewalk, clutching that document like it was burning my hands. Somewhere deep down, I was still hoping there was a misunderstanding. Some desperate part of me wanted to believe my parents had done this out of love, not greed. But when I got home that night and called them, hope finally died. My father answered, his tone smooth as always. "Maya," he said, "I was wondering when you'd find that." My heart stopped. "You knew?" He laughed softly. "Of course. It's not a big deal. We just needed the money for a short time." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You stole my identity," I shouted. His voice hardened. "Watch your tone. We did what we had to do. You're our daughter. This family's survival is your responsibility, too." And then my mother's voice joined the call, crying, sniffling between words. "We just wanted to survive," she said. "You know how hard things have been." That guilt, my oldest wound, rose instantly. I could feel it trying to drown me. But this time I didn't let it. "You had no right," I whispered. My father sighed, bored. "We didn't steal anything. You agreed verbally. Don't pretend you didn't." That lie, so clean, so confident, cut deeper than anything else. I hung up before I started screaming. I sat on the floor, clutching my phone, my chest heaving. Then slowly, something inside me shifted. I opened my recorder app, hit record, and whispered, "This ends now." The next day, I went back to their house. This time I came prepared. I placed my phone in my pocket, recording every word. When my father opened the door, I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't sorry. He was angry that I had found out. We stood in the living room where I'd once celebrated birthdays and Christmas mornings. The air felt poisoned. "Why would you forge my signature?" I asked. My father smirked. "Don't exaggerate. We're family." My mother's tears started again, that same old script. "We were desperate, Maya. Please understand. We raised you. We gave you everything." I stepped closer. "No, you took everything. My future. My name." My voice broke, but I didn't stop. "You used me like a bank account you could refill whenever you wanted." He pointed at me then, his expression cold. "You're ungrateful. After all we've done, this is how you repay us?" It was like watching an actor recite lines from a play he'd written himself. Gaslighting, smooth, practiced, lethal. I recorded every word, every lie, every false tear. And when I left, I didn't look back. The following morning, I walked into the bank with shaking hands and a folder full of evidence. The fraud specialist listened carefully, taking notes, asking for dates and copies. When I handed her the recording, she paused it halfway through, her face tight with disbelief. "This is clear misuse of your identity," she said. "We'll file a formal investigation." But peace didn't last. It never does when the people you're fighting are the ones who raised you. The next day, my phone exploded with messages. Cousins, neighbors, even an old teacher. Are you okay? I saw what your parents posted. My stomach dropped. I opened social media and there it was, a long public post from my mother's account. Our daughter is not well. She's been acting out, taking money that isn't hers and threatening us. Please pray for her. Hundreds of comments flooded in. Sympathy for them. Pity for the loving parents with a troubled daughter. My name, my reputation, my dignity, dragged through the mud by the very people who had stolen from me. I wanted to vanish. Every notification felt like a punch to the chest. And the worst part? People believed them. Because they were calm, respectable, polished, and I was the one with the trembling voice and tear-stained cheeks. I didn't leave my apartment for 2 days. Then, on the third morning, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, 2 police officers stood there. Maya Thomas? One asked. I nodded, my pulse spiking. We received a report that you made threats toward your parents. We just need to ask a few questions. I froze. My knees almost buckled. They had done it again, turned their crime into my punishment. I told the officers everything, showed them the documents, the recordings, the reports. They listened, exchanged looks, and finally said they'd make a note of it. But their tone told me they didn't know who to believe. I watched them leave, my heart hollow. The people who once tucked me into bed were now building a case to destroy me. A week later, an envelope arrived. Official, stamped, cold. A court summons. My parents had filed for a restraining order, claiming I was emotionally unstable and financially predatory. My hands trembled as I read it. They were trying to make me the villain, to erase every trace of the truth I'd gathered. When the day came, I walked into the courthouse wearing the only blazer I owned, clutching that folder like it was a lifeline. My parents were already seated inside, whispering to their lawyer, composed as ever. My father glanced at me, smirking slightly as if to say, "You'll never win." The clerk called out names one by one. My breath hitched when I heard it. Maya Thomas. The sound of it echoed through the courtroom, sharp and heavy. I stood up slowly, every eye turning toward me. My palms were slick, my knees weak, but I didn't sit back down. And when the judge called my name, the entire room froze. Because what none of them knew, what my parents were about to learn, was that I wasn't that obedient little girl anymore. I had evidence, truth, and a voice they could no longer silence. But before I could speak, the judge leaned forward, his expression unreadable, and said words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about justice, about family, about myself. I thought court would destroy me, but it became the stage where every secret came crashing down. I swear, Your Honor. It was a family decision. My father's voice cut through the silence like a blade, smooth, confident, dripping with false sincerity. He didn't even look at me when he said it. His eyes stayed fixed on the judge, on the jury, on anyone but the daughter he'd stolen from. My heart pounded in my chest so hard I could feel it in my throat. I wanted to scream, to leap up and tear down every lie pouring out of his mouth. But instead, I sat still, hands clenched in my lap, because my lawyer had told me, let them talk. Let them dig their own grave. My mother was next. Her voice trembled, soft and pitiful. We just wanted to help her, she said, pressing a hand to her heart. She's been struggling for years, Your Honor. She agreed to it over dinner. She just doesn't remember, the courtroom murmured. I felt my stomach twist. That same line, they had rehearsed it. The same performance they'd given my whole life. We're the victims. Maya is unstable. Maya is ungrateful, but what happened next? Changed everything. My lawyer stood up calmly. Your Honor, she said, we'd like to submit audio evidence recorded by the plaintiff, dated 3 weeks prior. My mother's eyes darted toward me for the first time that day, wide, trembling, terrified. My father's smirk faltered. I'll never forget that look. It was the first time I'd ever seen him afraid of me. The clerk pressed play. And then her voice filled the courtroom, my mother's voice. We used her social security number, she said in the recording. She'll never know. It's just paperwork. The room fell dead silent. You could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing above. The air turned heavy. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just watched as their faces turned pale, every drop of color draining like paint washed from a canvas. My father shot up from his chair. That's not real. She edited it, he shouted, pointing at me with a shaking hand. She's been manipulating us for months. She's mentally unstable. The judge slammed his gavel. Mr. Lawson, sit down. But he wouldn't. He couldn't handle the sound of his own lies collapsing around him. His mask cracked right there in front of everyone. You owe us everything, he roared. Every meal, every night under our roof. You think you're better than us because you went to college? Because you have a job? Everything you are, we built it. It didn't feel like anger anymore. It felt like desperation. Like the last howl of a man watching his kingdom crumble. My lawyer leaned toward me and whispered, "Don't respond. Just breathe." And for once in my life, I did exactly that. I breathed. Deep, steady, and free. The judge's voice came next. Calm, cold, cutting through the chaos. Mr. and Mrs. Lawson, this evidence clearly contradicts your sworn testimony. You are both hereby found liable for fraud committed against your daughter, Maya Lawson. Every word felt like the universe stitching itself back together. The defendants are ordered to repay the full amount of $40,000 and to issue a written, public apology to the plaintiff. My mother started crying, loud. Guttural sobs that echoed off the courtroom walls. My father slumped in his chair, staring straight ahead, his jaw tight but his eyes empty. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, I felt hollow, like standing in the ruins of a home you once loved. When the judge dismissed us, everyone filed out quietly. I just sat there for a moment, my hands trembling. The sound of the gavel still rang in my ears. My lawyer touched my shoulder gently. You did it, she said. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss wrapped in relief. Outside the courtroom, my parents avoided me completely. They walked past me like strangers. My father muttered something under his breath, something I couldn't catch, but the look he gave me was colder than I'd ever seen. My mother didn't even lift her head. For years I had begged for their approval. Now, for the first time, I didn't need it. As I walked out into the sunlight, the weight that had been crushing my chest began to lift. The air felt different, brighter, lighter. For so long, I believed freedom would come from reconciliation, from them finally understanding me. But that day, I learned the truth. Freedom isn't about being understood. It's about no longer being controlled, and yet, even as I smiled through tears, a quiet ache settled in my chest. Because no one tells you that winning against your own family doesn't feel like victory. It feels like surviving a war you never wanted to fight. That night, I sat alone on my apartment floor, surrounded by silence. I replayed everything in my head. The lies, the shouts, the verdict, the way my father's voice broke when the recording played. I thought justice would bring peace, but instead it brought emptiness. I had spent so long defining myself through their betrayal that I didn't know who I was without it. But as the night grew darker, something changed. I looked around and realized, for the first time, no one was watching me. No one was checking my phone, criticizing my choices, or rewriting my story. I was alone, but I was mine. I whispered to the quiet, I forgive you, but I'll never forget. And in that moment, it wasn't for them. It was for me. Because forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means letting go of the weight they left behind. When I finally closed my eyes, I could still hear my father's words echoing, "You owe us everything." And for the first time, I could answer, even if only in my mind, "No, I owe you nothing." But freedom comes with loneliness and the scars of surviving your own blood. When I left that courtroom, I thought I'd walk straight into peace. I imagined the silence after victory would feel like sunlight after a storm, warm, clean, and safe. But it didn't. It was quiet, yes, but it was the kind of quiet that made you realize how much noise had been hiding inside you. For weeks, I woke up expecting another call from my parents, another accusation, another knock at my door. But none came. The silence stayed, heavy, echoing, almost sacred. I packed my life into 2 suitcases and left the city. No goodbyes, no forwarding address. Just a small rented apartment 3 hours away, a new job at a local bookstore, and a view of the river that never stopped moving. That's what I wanted, to keep moving. The first morning I woke up there, I sat by the window, coffee in hand, and waited for the anxiety to creep in. It didn't. The phone didn't ring. No police, no lies, no shouting. Just birds, just sunlight. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. But healing isn't a straight line. Some days I missed them so much it hurt to breathe. Other days, I couldn't understand how I ever let people who claimed to love me treat me like property. I'd sit on my little balcony and whisper to myself, "You're free now, Maya. Don't forget that." It became my mantra. Freedom. Not from them, but from the version of me that kept begging for their approval. A few months later, I started volunteering at a community center for young women who'd been pressured, controlled, or emotionally blackmailed by family. I listened to stories that sounded too much like mine. Girls told they were selfish for wanting independence, daughters shamed for saying no. And every time I listened, I saw pieces of myself in their faces. I wasn't their savior. I was just proof that you could survive it. One of them, a quiet girl named Nisha, once asked, "How do you stop loving people who hurt you?" I told her the truth. You don't stop. You just learn to love yourself more. The days grew softer after that. I'd walk home through streets lined with jacaranda trees, purple petals falling around me like confetti, and I'd think, this is what calm feels like. There was no grand epiphany, no sudden joy, just a slow return to myself. I even started painting again, something I'd given up years ago because my father said it was a waste of time. Now I painted whatever I wanted. Messy, imperfect, alive. Then one afternoon in early spring, something arrived that made my hands tremble again. A letter. No return address, but the handwriting, neat, slanted, familiar, stopped me cold. It was from my mother's sister, my Aunt Elise, someone I hadn't heard from since the trial. My first instinct was to throw it away. I didn't want to open old wounds. But curiosity, or maybe longing, won. I tore it open carefully, my heart pounding in my ears. "Maya," it began, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I see it now. I see what we let happen. I see how silence made us accomplices. Your mother is broken in ways I can't fix, and your father, he doesn't speak your name anymore. I'm sorry I didn't stand up when it mattered." I had to stop reading for a moment. My throat tightened. Those words, "I didn't stand up when it mattered," burned through me. For years, I had wished that someone, anyone in my family would have defended me. And now that I finally had it, months too late, I didn't know what to feel. I read it 3 times. The ink was smudged in places like she'd cried while writing it. Part of me wanted to reply, to say thank you. You don't know how much this means. But the other part, the stronger part, whispered, not every apology deserves an audience. So I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and never answered. Sometimes silence is the reply. That night, I lit a candle by the window and let the wind move through the room. I thought about my mother, her trembling hands on the witness stand, her voice breaking. I thought about my father's eyes, cold, proud, empty. And I thought about the child version of me who once believed their love was the only safety in the world. That girl had been wrong, but she was still inside me, waiting to be held. So I whispered to her, "We made it." Healing didn't come with fireworks. It came with mornings where I wasn't afraid to check my mail. With nights where I could finally sleep without replaying every argument. With small moments, like a stranger smiling or a child laughing in the park, that reminded me the world could still be kind. But what happened next left me speechless. One morning, as I sat on a park bench reading, a woman approached me. I recognized her instantly, the same judge who had presided over my case. She smiled softly. "Maya Lawson," she said, "I just wanted to tell you, you were incredibly brave that day." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, tears rising behind my eyes. She touched my shoulder gently before walking away. That simple moment, someone remembering, someone acknowledging, felt like closure I hadn't even known I needed. I looked around the park, the children chasing pigeons, the sunlight spilling across the water, and I realized something. My story wasn't about revenge or justice anymore. It was about becoming someone who could look at the wreckage of her past and still choose to love the world anyway. I still think about that letter sometimes. It's tucked in a drawer, sealed in its quiet honesty. And though I never replied, I'm grateful it exists. Because it reminded me that remorse is rare. And when it comes, it deserves respect, even if you can't return it. Forgiveness doesn't always mean walking back into the fire. Sometimes it just means stepping away from the smoke. Now, when I wake up in the morning, I open the curtains wide. I let the light in. I make my coffee slowly, savoring the warmth, the silence, the peace that once felt impossible. There are no more calls, no more lies, no more pretending. Just me, alive, healing, whole. And sometimes when I pass by the community center, I see those girls laughing together. I see the hope in their eyes, the defiance, the strength. And I smile. Because maybe that's my real inheritance. Not money, not approval, but freedom. I've stopped asking why my parents did what they did. Some answers bring no comfort. The truth is, people who cannot face their own pain will always try to give it to someone else. And the greatest act of defiance is refusing to carry it. So if you're listening now, wondering what to do with your own pain, whether to forgive, to fight, or to walk away, I'll tell you what I've learned. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about freeing yourself from the version of you that still bleeds for their validation. And as I sit here on this park bench, watching the sunlight flicker through the trees, I'll leave you with this. The truth doesn't destroy families. Secrets do. And the moment I faced mine, I finally understood. Freedom is the greatest inheritance.